Hi, I'm attorney Casey Walker. Today I want to discuss when a veteran should choose to have a BVA hearing and when they should not choose to have a BVA hearing. What's the purpose of a BVA hearing? And by BVA, I mean the Board of Veterans Appeals. So let's step back for a second. You just got a VA decision and you need to file a notice of disagreement within 1 year, or you need to file a higher level review or supplemental appeal. Those are the three lanes that you can appeal under AMA. But let's assume for this discussion that you're going to go to the Board of Veterans Appeals. You want your day in court, you want to see an administrative judge, or you at least want an administrative judge to make the decision. What are your options on that appeal form? If you look at the VA form, which is found in our description, it's an appeal form, and there's 3 separate data blocks that you can select from. One of those must be chosen. One might say you don't want a hearing. One says that you want a hearing, and the other says that you want to be a part of the Evidence Docket. So if you don't request a hearing and you just want a direct decision, that means you can't submit any additional evidence. So we usually advise against that because you might have new evidence in the next 30, 60, 90 days that you want to submit. And nothing's going to happen within that period anyhow, so you might as well just check that box. The discussion here is, do you want a hearing or not? If you don't do a hearing, you're going to speed your case up. If you don't do a hearing, you'll probably cut off 6 months to a year minimum on the docket and when you get your decision. Why? Because there's a longer wait for the hearings. Not only is there a longer wait for the hearings, but then when you do the hearing, they have to reduce the hearing to what's called a transcript. And the board judge won't even remember who you are as a veteran in most cases because it's 6 months or so for the transcripts to be placed in the record. So what actually happens is if you do the hearing, the board judge is going to reference your chicken scratch notes to see who this veteran was and what they remember about you. And then they're going to look at the transcripts as well. But it takes time. So if you elect to have a hearing, there should be a good reason to have a board hearing. Well, what are some good reasons? What we find is that where a veteran has missing records. So for example, if you have a Vietnam veteran and their records are missing, or a Korean veteran and their records were burned in the fire, or the famous St. Louis fire, we have no records to work with. So we're just hoping the judge accepts the veteran's word at face value that he served in Korea or Vietnam or wherever it might be. In such a situation, we request a board hearing. So that's an example of when you would want a board hearing, because you want your testimony on record. You don't want to you're going to want to submit a sworn statement anyhow in that case. But in addition to the written communication, you want to be able to have your day in court so that you can look that judge in the eye and hope that they find you to be credible. And I think the judges find it helpful as well. They appreciate when a veteran in such a circumstance requests a hearing so that they can tell the judge themselves, person to person, their story and what they know to be truth. So that's an example of when you would want a hearing. There aren't a ton of examples I can think of to when you would actually want a hearing. And the reason I say this, and that most people might find this surprising, is because you can put everything in the written record. You can write everything out and you can submit it into the record, and it's going to look pretty similar to a transcript. Either way, it's a written communication. Your hearing is nothing more than a written document in the end. So you might as well just write it out and tell the judge what you want to tell them in writing, get on the evidence docket, submit it within 90 days, and you'll cut off 6 months to a year of waiting time. This is a general discussion, and I'm trying to give you insight as to the pros and cons of both. Where your testimony could be probative and helpful, then you probably want a BVA hearing. But otherwise, get on the evidence docket. But don't get on the evidence docket unless you're going to give them evidence. Another reason why you might want the board hearing, even if you don't actually want a hearing, is because you might gather 3 years or 4 years of evidence, and you might need that additional time. So here's an example. If you do the evidence docket, which is the opposite of a board hearing, you have 90 days. From the date of that appeal, you have 90 days to submit any additional evidence, and then that window closes, and you're waiting for a decision for about 2 years. But you had to give it to them within that 90-day window. Well, what if you have a bunch of new evidence after that 90 days? So this becomes problematic because you have a bunch of very probative evidence that can develop. Maybe you have a knee surgery, maybe you get a bunch of chiropractic care during the waiting period. You're waiting regardless. So this is a reason why you might want a hearing, not for the hearing itself, but because you can submit all of that additional evidence within 90 days of the hearing happening. Now, what we'll do a lot of times is as we're getting close and we think we've developed enough evidence over the course of 2 to 3 years, because you're going to be waiting regardless, we'll withdraw the hearing if we don't think it'll be helpful, and we'll submit all that evidence that we had. But instead of giving us 90 days to submit it, we change the docket, withdraw the hearing request, and submit all the evidence 2 to 3 years later. Now, all that evidence gets submitted. There's gamesmanship with this stuff. You got to know the system you're working with, and you need to know how to maximize what benefits you the most. And evidence is the name of the game with VA disability claims. And so the more time you have to develop that evidence, the better. So what we find to be the best approach is request a board hearing, develop the evidence over the 2 to 3 years, maybe 4 years that you're waiting for that hearing. And then when you feel you've created and developed enough evidence that will support your claim, you submit a written communication to the Board of Veterans' Appeals withdrawing your hearing. From the date of that withdrawal, you have 90 days to give them any additional evidence you want to give them. And that's when you'd send them all the evidence you develop. So you kind of have your cake and eat it too in that situation, because you're not waiting for the transcript to be produced because you don't have the hearing. You still cut a little bit of time off the record, and you also get that additional time to develop the record. If and when you decide to withdraw the hearing, as we do for many of our clients, here's how you're going to do it. You're going to take a standard written communication. Make sure your Social Security or claims file number is on there. And you're not withdrawing the claim. Do not withdraw the claim. You're just withdrawing the hearing request. So it'll be titled Withdrawal of BVA Hearing Request. And then it'll be a 2-sentence statement. I do not withdraw my appeal, period. I request to withdraw the BVA hearing request, period. Please adjudicate my claim accordingly, period. All right, so that's 3 sentences, not two. But put that together. Send it to the Board of Veterans' Appeals, and then from the date you submit that to the Board of Veterans' Appeals withdrawing the hearing request, you have 90 days to submit your additional evidence. You can submit the additional evidence to the BVA or the Evidence Intake Center. They have access to both. So there you have it. The point of this discussion was to compare and contrast the benefits of a board hearing with the Board of Veterans' Appeals. Why should you request it? Why should you not request it? Hopefully you found this helpful, and if you did, like and subscribe. Thanks for watching. Have a good day.